I was talking with Chris while we were out, and I was thinking it might be helpful for me to give a prediction, if you will, of what seems likely to happen based on my experience with the American courts if this case were tried. And we don't know in any one situation what would happen, but if it were tried hypothetically 10 times, what would be the average outcome? I don't know whether that is something that would be useful, or is that...
I think it would be.
Okay. Well, I think there are various theories here, and you've heard them articulated. One is that the contract was terminated for cause. And another is that essentially they gave 90 days notice to the next September 1st, in which case there would be 90 days which you'd be entitled to recovery for profits, and then the contract would terminate. Another theory is that it hasn't terminated at all. It just was ineffective, the termination notice they gave. And Chris, if that were true, is there anything that would prevent them from sending a termination notice next week for this coming September 1st?
You know, Dwight, probably not. I mean, we'd obviously argue that that the detailed oral discussions and representations that were made should trump the language of the written contract, which is one of the reasons why Ms. Gandhi is so upset, because they had those conversations.
Yep.
It was sort of the handshake to the company meant more than what was written on that piece of paper. That being said, I think the likelihood of prevailing on that legal theory is very low.
Yeah. There seem to be three basic possibilities. One being the termination for cause, another being, I'll call, the 90-day termination, and the other being the 14-month termination. And I had said no more than a 10% chance that a court would find termination for cause, meaning a 90% chance they'd find they didn't have cause to terminate you. And of the 90%, about let's say a 60% chance of the 90-day termination being ruled effective, and about a 30% chance that it wasn't effective, in which case they'd have to give you full 14 months. If it's termination for cause, there is no recovery. If there is a 90-day termination and you are earning, by your calculation, over $30,000 in profits per month, that's $100,000. If it's 14 months times over $30,000 a month, that comes out to about $460,000. If there's a 60% chance that the 90-day termination would be effective, and it's worth $100,000 as a recovery, that's worth $60,000. If there's about a 30% chance that you would get the full 14 months, 30% of $460,000 is about $140,000. The average verdict would be about $200,000. And that's assuming your profits are accepted by the court. I think that's more likely than not, but it's not certain. So on average, the trial value might be in the $150,000 to $200,000 range under the American court system.
No guarantees. It's just sort of a risk assessment formula based on outcome possibilities.
Yeah, but I mean, this is, well, I don't know much about the American court system, but it's very upsetting because, I mean, actually, the real contract was not this 90-day, 14-month, it was a long-term contract. That
Right.
was the contract. And MedPro has done enough business in India and Asia that they understand that conversation was the contract. They understand that.
Yep.
They know that. And the fact that there's no way to get that into the American courts, I find it very upsetting.
There's also the issue of cost. I don't know what it will cost even approximately to litigate this case. I don't know if you've thought about that, Chris.
Well, I have a good understanding of what their attorneys charge, and if we don't get some major concessions, then we're not going to back down, and I think they're going to have to do a lot of work. So I'm guessing it would cost them about $750,000 to litigate this case.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, and you have an advantage because you have an efficient, very good lawyer who has much lower overhead than the defense does. it's still, you're gonna have to take depositions in India, maybe in China, there's all the emails to go through. What do you think the cost is from your side to litigate it?
Probably $300,000.
Okay. Well, that seems realistic. The problem is then that it pretty well wipes out any recovery.
But don't you also need to take a look at their risk assessment with litigation costs as well?
Yes, and I think that's why they're offering as much as they are, and why I believe that we can get them to go higher, and I believe we can even get the guaranteed, favorable, non-exclusive. In light of this, I think what I need is something, I'd like you to talk, but a move that reflects your understanding of what is likely to happen if we can't get this resolved today and you have to go through litigation, and a signal that will bring them forward into a range that we can settle this. So I'll leave you, do your best, and let's see what happens.
Okay.